Hey guys, Joey here, and in today's video, I'm going to show you a tool that makes your track cut through a mix. It's called a Transient Designer. The idea with this type of processing is to boost or reduce the volume of a signal for a short amount of time at the beginning of every waveform. It's basically an automatic volume fader that only activates at the start of a sound. Let me show you a few key ways that I like to use them. Load a Transient Designer on a track or bus. In this example, I'm going to use JST Transify, but you can use any Transient Designer that has multiple bands. Start with the mid band. The main frequency that needs to pop is between 800 and 5000 Hz. Just boost the attack until you hear it over the mix.
How did it get so messy? How did it get so messy, messy? I'm drinking without you, I'm thinking about you. How did it get so messy, messy?
The sustain knob controls how long our boost is going to last. I like to set this so you can hear the word clearly, but not so long that you really notice it.
How did it get so messy, messy? I'm drinking without you, I'm thinking about you. And it all falls down before I run.
The midband brought up the intelligibility, and now there's a little too much high frequency noise. The plosives and S's are a little too loud. I'm going to treat this with a reduction on the high band. Just lower the treble attack until the S's aren't as noticeable.
How did it get so messy, messy? How did it get so 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 messy, messy? I'm drinking without you.
Great, now just play with the sustain until the sibilance is being affected, but the overall tone of the vocal doesn't change.
How did it get so How did it get so messy? How did it get so How did it get so How did it get so messy? How did it get so messy, messy? I'm drinking without you.
If the vocal starts to sound too pokey, then the low mid band will help bring a little more body and excitement back into the mix. Same as the mid band, just increase the attack until the body of the vocal is more pronounced. Be careful not to overdo this band. The low mids can make or break your vocal's power.
How did it get so messy? How did it get so How did it get so messy, messy? Wanna know what hell is like?
That sounds good to me. This move brought a little excitement to the body of our vocal without sacrificing consistency. From here, we can EQ and compress normally and get a totally cutting and huge tone. Transient designers are super common on drum tracks. Let's listen and see what these drums need. There's definitely a lack of high end and overall punch. But before I go adding a bunch of compression, let's see how much clarity we can get just from processing the transients. All the drums could use a presence boost, so let's start with the mid-range. I have the cutoff set between 1000 and 5000 Hz, so that's the only frequencies that will be affected. The easiest way to hear the process is to crank the attack and set the sustain, and bring the attack back down to the right level. That's already way more forward in the mix. The kick could use some extra low end, but just increasing that range with the EQ can actually introduce mud. Let's try doing a similar process with the Transient Designer. I'm going to set the sustain to be about the length of the kick. This way, the bass frequencies will have time to play fully and then duck. By boosting low end with a Transient Designer, there's a great low end punch on each hit while also keeping the bass frequencies clean. If you want a clickier sound from the shells, the treble boost is an instant way to introduce that tone. Check it out. Now that the transients are really coming through, the shells can be compressed aggressively without losing that punch. The transient processing brings these shells forward in the mix and makes sure that they're always audible. This tool works great on bass too. A common problem with bass tracks is that there's a lack of low-mid impact and too many muddy sub frequencies. Just cutting the sub on the bass is going to give the kick the room it needs, but it'll ruin the power of the mix. And increasing the low mids on the bass can be cool, but it can also eat up the weight of a snare drum. I'm going to show you how you can accomplish all of this with just a Transient Designer. This bass is just a DI going into a fuzz pedal, so it's important to shape the DI tone before the fuzz. Processing the transients here allows me to get exactly the distortion tone that I'm looking for. As I show you this process, pay special attention to how shaping the transients affects the distortion character. First, let's get some thump in the bass tone. I'm going to do this with the low mid band. The crossover is from 200 to 1000 Hz, which is basically the body of the bass guitar. I'm going to boost the attack and sustain until I hear a good amount of body coming out of every note. Next, let's clean up the low end. I'm going to duck the attack on each note so that the presence is more audible. Immediately after the note hits, the bass will come back in. It's sort of like sidechaining the bass to itself. The low end is hitting just right, but I'd like to hear a little more of the clank. Let's bring in a slight mid boost to help get more of that grit from the distortion. Great, every note has enough impact and stays out of the way of the other instruments. A little EQ and limiting will get this bass tone right where it needs to be. And that's it. Transient designers are an incredible tool for shaping a tone. Having the power to adjust the transient response is crucial for saving time and getting better results from your plugins down the line. You should use this when you think a sound needs more excitement, but a static EQ move could throw off the whole mix. Have you ever used a transient designer? What are some creative ways that you've used this tool in your mix? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, hit that subscribe button. Don't forget to check the links in the description below. Tap that bell to get notified whenever we upload new videos. Until next time, happy mixing.